Hello, my name is Dr. Sergey Shealy-Sorin, Medical Director of the Shealy-Sorin Wellness Institute. And I've gotten to the place where I got to by a very interesting journey. Well, everyone has an interesting journey, but mine started back in the former Soviet, Russia. Back at that time, I was born into a family of physicians. My grandmother was a physician, my uncle was a physician, and by the way, I saw him die of frank medical malpractice, and again, nothing could be done under that given system. So that was, I learned some lessons from the shadow side as well. My mom was a nurse, and as far as I can tell, my great-grandparents had something to do with healing or medicine even before doctor's degrees were being handed out. But so when it came time for me to decide what I want to do with my life, of course, the first thing that came out of me, and this was, I was a kid at the time, is, what do you mean? I'm going to be a doctor. That's what else could I be? Now, of course, I could be anything or anyone that I choose to, but it's been in my heart, or it's been my foundation ever since early times. Being born in Russia, former Soviet, it has taught me a very different perspective. Medicine was backwards, but many of the people and practitioners were thinking out of the box because the choices were so limited. And the medicine was about 20 years behind Western medicine. So in order to have any kind of a decent outcome, as you know, where doctors are still human beings, providers are still human beings, we want to do good. It literally taught me to watch and to be aware of not just what the system has to offer, but what's outside. So that's how I entered into medicine. And when I came to the country, I was about 12 years old, 12 and a half or so. I somehow managed to skip a couple of grades. I think it was a numerical error, I say jokingly, but in reality, I graduated from high school at 16, despite coming to the country at 12. So I skipped a couple of grades that way. I even ended up going to college and teaching English, grammar and otherwise. It's been always my motto: if you're gonna learn something, get to the level where you can teach it. This way, you know what you're doing. So that was an interesting journey. Medical school was it's a journey like no other. It's a lot of hours. There's a lot of things that happen. And the interesting thing about the journey of medical school education is the more you go on. It was absolutely fascinating for me to see, in retrospect, how people who were open to holistic or otherwise approaches on their first year of medical school, by their fourth year, they were so brainwashed and so inundated with everything that they had to do and memorize and learn, and anything else that was outside of the system was beaten out of us, literally beaten out of us in terms of grading. And I remember getting terrible grades in certain classes until I realized that I had to choose the answers that the right answers for the test, not the right answers for life. And that's a discrepancy between, the standards, which are substandard, still are to a large degree, and optimal practice of medicine, individual to each person. So when I entered medicine, I started with family practice. And I've had some emergency room training, and I did complete about a year of emergency room training, emergency medicine, which literally sparked my interest in that field, in the acute field, which would last for the next 20 years. I am primarily an emergency room provider, doctor in the conventional sense. I could not do family medicine the way it was put together and packaged. Just this fact of basically seeing a person every 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes, primarily 10 minutes if you're lucky, or if somebody doesn't show up and you still got to get your note in, or you have to document hours afterwards. And of course, paperwork and insurance and all that stuff. So that started to have an effect on me early on. And so I knew that it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't enough motivation. It was not yet enough drive to push me over the cliff, so to speak, into the unknown, into the holism. That happened in 2007. In 2007, I was already married. I've achieved, what I would call an American dream: house, cars. I had a decent bank account, salary that I never thought was possible back in former Soviet Russia, but especially as a medical student. My God, I'm a doctor. This is great, and I was fairly happy. I wouldn't say happy. I was okay doing what I was doing. Until 2007, when I was diagnosed with colon cancer stage 3. Now, it was not all of a sudden. There was a lot of denial, and I learned a lot about human psychology and behavior from my own mistakes. And if I could have gone back in time, well, I wouldn't change a thing, let's put it this way. But it taught me something very, very essential. It has taught me if I was going to die, and this exactly was what I was told by the first oncologist who came in to tell me the bad news, so to speak. I have 2 years to live. This is in 2007, and I'm in my 30s, prime of my life, physical, mental, emotional, up until the diagnosis and surgical and all that stuff. And half my colon is out, and I am facing the prospect of chemotherapy for the next 2 years. So basically, live a very short, a brief time and be tortured until I die. So that was the blessing, and that was the gift, and that was the message that sent me over the top. That's when I said to myself, you know what, if I'm going to be dead in 2 years, and I think I know what medicine is about, I have access to colleagues, to the specialists, I've spoken with a lot of people, nobody could say anything else to offer anything within the conventional system. That's when I realized conventional system is good at certain things. It's good at maintaining disease. This is chronic disease. It doesn't really cure anything. Now, acute medicine, which is why I do emergency room work, it keeps me on my toes, and I like that. I like that field. I like the procedures. I like the critical thinking. I even like doing the emergency things that can save people's lives. I don't want to do it if I don't have to, but if it comes to it, I am ready. But beyond emergency, what I've realized is if you don't want to maintain or continue health, or if you want to actually live your best life, conventional medicine is not the answer. Is not the answer whatsoever. The answer is holism. Mind, body, spirit. So, ever since my first experience in 2007 with exposure to death, or the concept of death, and the impermanence of physical life, I've really asked myself a lot of serious questions. I've gone into the science, into spirituality, into religion. I've read books upon books. I've read resources. I've read about healing modalities. I was a sponge. I just absorbed for about 10 to 12 years after that, and I still do that. I come across a new source of information. I want to know everything that I can, and when I know it, I'll share it, and I'll apply it, put it to good use. So that's been my motivator. And the interesting thing is, despite being told that I would be dead in 2 years from cancer and chemotherapy, and I initially started chemo, but then I realized if I continued on this path, conventional path with oncology and everything else, it would kill me, one way or another. And I decided not to go that route. So I became a whole new being, from the lifestyle to my thoughts to my emotions. And eventually, I started my own company, together with a medical partner who has taught me quite a bit, Dr. Brian Daly. Together, we founded something called Synchronicity Wellness, which was later renamed as Samvit Wellness. Samvit is a Sanskrit word for, it's for blessing, for healing, for many positive health-wise and mindful things. The process was all about the brain, the frequency, using binaural beats, using gamma frequencies, which is in the zone, but also mind-body techniques. And, of course, I kept reading and learning what I could. Now, in 2015, we were teaching in a workshop in Kansas City. The organization is called SEM. It's not. We've done a number of workshops there and a number of other organizations since, But that is when the fate handed me my next step, my next phase of life. I met Dr. Norm Shealy, the man whom I have known to be the father of holistic medicine. And he is indeed, with over 5 decades of innovation, starting from TENS units to dorsal cord stimulator to number of patents, over 30 plus books, research articles, basically science and spirituality. And that's exactly what was on my mind. That's exactly what drove me every day in and out. And as shortly after we met, he offered me to come down to Springfield, Missouri, to join him in the practice. At that point, it was Shealy Wellness. Eventually, it became Shealy-Sorin Wellness Institute, and now I've been, it's 2021, I've been with Dr. Shealy now for, almost 5 years now. Every single day, I still learn a ton from him. But especially the first couple of years was an equivalent of what I would call the most intense residency or training or fellowship, however you want to call it, that I ever had, beyond the conventional. And so it was about not just learning modalities and techniques and various applications, and we do a lot. It's a mind, body, spirit technique. We work with a number of factors. But what I also learned is that the approach is the key. The holistic approach, the capacity to step out and look at the individual, not look at the disease, but look at the patterns, look at what can be changed, look at where did the process go wrong, and how do we get it back from dis-ease back into ease. And that goes back to my original concept about everything that I grew up with. It literally brought back my memories from childhood and my grandparent, my grandmother, and my mother and my uncle, and common sense was essential because there was very little else left. There was no resources, so common sense was the way to go for those who cared to practice that, of course. Interestingly, in the much more advanced healthcare system in the United States, common sense is still the least common commodity. And at this point, between helping people to achieve their best health, mental health, anxiety, depression, pain, specializing in chronic illness or dis-ease, going from chronic dis-ease, reversing it back into ease. In other words, bringing back natural alignment. That is the passion. That is why what we do, and every day we hear from people who tell us how wonderful they're doing. Again, it's not a question of us doing something wonderful. It's a question of being a conduit. I also had a number of other experiences, very interesting and wonderful experiences that I was blessed with. I had a near-death experience. During that time, I was worth mentioning, I suppose. Drove in after a night shift. It was like 24-hour shift, as a matter of fact, and I was going to another emergency room shift. So lots of work, no sleep, fell asleep, woke up just about a second or so before hitting a utility pole about 70-something miles an hour. Found myself floating or being aware of the bloody mess down below in the vehicle. Now that was an interesting story, and I'll talk about that a little bit, because that also shaped significantly my approach. Now, this was about 10 years ago, so this was a precursor to many of the things that happened, but it helped me to understand and to make sense from the spirit, mind, body approach, everything else that has taken place in medicine, personally and otherwise. The key aspects of that experience, and it's nearly impossible to put into words, is, and people talk about encounter with heaven or otherwise. I can only share one thing. We have an exercise in biogenics, which is one of the self-regulation and stress management that is so powerful, and I don't have to believe it. I know it. I've seen it. I've felt it. We have a physical body. And we're more than a physical body. I saw that physical body in a bloody mess down in the vehicle, and the vehicle was about to blow up as well. I mean, there was smoke coming from the engine, but there was absolute peace. I am more than my physical body. But I'm not disregarding that I have a physical body. I have my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, and my emotions. And those are patterns as well. Everything is a pattern. And so when I approach those things, if I have a negative pattern of thinking, I can think of it in terms of, this is not who I am more than that, so do I want to change it? And how do I change it? What are the tools to change it? How do I approach it? Who am I? I am a spiritual being having this interesting earth experience. And from my understanding, as a matter of fact, the only purpose that I'm still alive, or the only reason why I'm still alive, is because I'm not done yet. And it's not because of me. Every single person comes in, I believe, for a purpose. This is my clear, firm, and absolutely solid understanding based on my experiences, and I've had a number of other strange and unusual things happen to me. But the beautiful thing about it is, as conduits, as vessels for the divine, for the purpose that we're created, for the skills that we have, for the capacity to do something positive in the world, to make a change, to help somebody, to help one single person. That's all it takes. But if we're able to help more than that, that is my life's mission. Now, I've been asked, how do I see my life moving forward? And what is my vision, and what would I like to accomplish? Now, I'm in my 40s right now, and we've done quite a few things. I've been emergency room physician, family medicine training, and also a holistic provider now with my own personal experiences. And I do not intend to stop whatsoever until I have to. This is something that is a mission. It's my vision. Every single day, I do not work for a living. I love what I do. I love talking to my patients. I love talking to the clients. I love helping in any way. If I can help somebody at a gas station doing something, I will do that. But then again, given the skill levels and, the capacity to help, we are in a unique position at Shealy-Sorin Wellness Institute to bring forth the concept, to bring back the concept of the human being as a whole. The human being as a spirit, soul, mind, body, and spirit, and to help people optimize their life to the degree that they're willing and interested. And to that degree, we're going to walk with them all the way. Thank you for listening, and this is a little bit of a story of my life. I'll probably share a lot more, but that's the short of it.